Hey, how's it going? Today, I'm talking about from 7-hour marathoner to 619 at Dopey, a real Run Disney success story with Amanda Mueller.
This is Running to the Castle, a podcast for injury-prone Run Disney runners on a journey to running magical miles. Join me, Dr. Allie, as I share the secrets I've gathered as a runner, doctor of physical therapy, and coach. You'll learn the exact ways I get my clients to the castle strong without feeling broken or held together with KT tape as they cross the finish line.
Okay, so I have Amanda Mueller here. She gets the award for the first person that I am interviewing for the second time on Running to the Castle podcast. So thank you so much, Amanda, for being here.
Well, thank you for having me back. It's quite the pleasure to be able to be here again. I had to laugh. I did have to go and listen to the first episode to make sure I didn't spend too much time duplicating myself.
And if you do duplicate yourself, it's okay because it must be important. And so many people love your episode from then that they would probably also enjoy hearing whatever you have to say a second time. So don't worry about repeating yourself.
That's kind words.
So I did invite you here in September of 2025 to talk about your half marathon that we did Disneyland Halloween weekend half marathon, and you had an incredible jump from the 2024 weekend to 2025. And now we get to talk about the races that you've done since then. So today, as of recording this, we are in March of 2026. Marathon weekend has passed. Disneyland weekend has passed. Princess weekend has passed, though we won't be talking about that for you today because this year you stayed off the course for Princess weekend, which is perfectly fine. We don't always have to do them all, everybody, right? I know, Run Disney, got that itch. But we can stay home. But you had some incredible wins for Marathon weekend, Disneyland weekend again, and just training in general, which I can't wait for everybody to hear about.
Well, thank you. I am excited. I am more excited to run now than I ever remember being excited to run, and I think it is attributed a lot to my training. Yes, it always helps to be successful when you hit that start line and that finish line. But I think the hard part is the day-to-day out on the road. And as I've always told anybody when they start talking about wanting to train for a marathon, I say the hardest part are those long miles by yourself. It's a lot of time.
A lot of time, which is one of the reasons I haven't done a marathon yet. Not that I don't think I could do it, but man, doing all those training runs for 6-7 months, weekend after weekend. Well, maybe not the weekend. My long run happens on Fridays, so maybe it wouldn't be the weekend, but every week going out and having so many miles out on your own, that can take a big hit. And actually, speaking of that, I don't know if you would like to chat about this, but we had a conversation, maybe it was in November, of your mileage as you were ramping up into those higher miles and getting into the winter season. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So I live in the Midwest. I live in a suburb of Chicago. And anybody who is in this area, we had a rough winter. And it started early. And with that being said, I think I went through some of my own mental battle, something about going from 9 to 10 miles. And I don't know why. It's not like I've done halves. So it wasn't that. It was just a mental battle getting over and being able to be consistent over 9 miles, I think was what was bothering me. And I want to say I had 2 or 3 weeks, and I think the first week may have even been in October, in which we were at that 10-mile mark, and it was hard. It felt harder than I thought it should. And after the second time that it felt that hard, and now I'm at 11 miles, because a true 10%, we went, and it may have been 11 something, but it was at that point, because it may have been 10 something. It felt harder. And in one of our coaching calls, I about lost it because and it wasn't that I was mad. I was mad at myself that I couldn't seem to get over this hump. And you were like, let's do this. Let's step back just a little bit in mileage for a week. Let's take your down week now, not later. Probably was the best thing I could have done at that moment because I think I needed to come back after that down week and be able to go, okay, I'm rested. Now let's do this. And I never felt like I was tired or that I was overtrained in any way, shape, or form, but I think mentally I was tired. And if you think about it, we'd been training since the beginning of July, and we are now in November. And so I think I was mentally tired as much as I was physically tired. And once I got over it, I was over it. But that was a rough moment getting to. And I think I was looking I was at 10. And like I said, I think even the second week when I was still struggling, I was in the 11s. And my brain was thinking, oh my God, I still have to get to 26. I still have to get to that 20-miler run. How am I going to do this if I can't get to 11 or to over this 10 hump? And so I think bringing me back down slightly. And it was funny because even when we went to do my taper, I think you ended up scheduling my one taper run. The first taper run was to be 10 miles, and you actually scheduled me at 9.99. Only because we knew that sometimes that 10 will throw me.
That definitely sounds like getting it to just the 0.99 and screwing with everybody's like perfectionist thinking, oh, I got to get to exactly 10 miles, right? Like, you just said it was probably 11 something because it was probably 10 something. Yeah. If it's a true Dr. Allie training plan, it has 10.67 miles going up to 11.54 miles and driving everybody's perfectionist absolutely bonkers because why not?
Kind of got to the point, I kind of like those numbers now because I can't always compare apples to oranges that way. Because I think when you're always at mile markers or half mile markers, you're always comparing those to each other, right? And this way, I can't always do it as easy. It just doesn't, I don't know. I just think sometimes it gives me something different to think about. And the fact I do my warm up and cool down. You have it scheduled, I'll be honest, you have it scheduled for 10 minutes. I quickly realized what I can do in 10 minutes. And I actually changed it so that I do my warm up is 0.75 miles because I wanted a total mileage when figuring it out. So I knew how long it was going to take me on the road or about how long. And this also has to do with my family and just being able to work with them. And then I do a 1/4 mile cool down, which I know isn't quite enough. But what I also do is I typically end at our farmer's market and walk home, which is another 1/4 mile. So I'm still getting about a half mile warm down or cool down. It's just, it gets even slower because now I'm with my family and we have conversation and whatever. But so I think sometimes even that played into it because I know the only run I did not count my warm up and my cool down was the 20-miler. And that was partially because I just got too cold.
Yeah, because at that point, 20 miles, it's like December 14th through the 20th-ish time frame. The exact date is going to vary year to year, but that's about 3 or so weeks before marathon race weekend in the Run Disney World, and that's when that peak long run is. So yeah, in the Midwest, that is going to be chilly.
Yeah, and like I said, we had a rough winter in the fact having this wasn't my first marathon or Disney marathon, so it's not like I've not trained through these months before, but it was the first time I remember being so cold in November and December, and it wasn't like it was icy, it was just outright cold. And we did have snow really early this year even, but I just found that one of the things that we've talked about is muscles and how they react being cold or warm. compared to a rubber band. And that finally hit to why sometimes by the time I got to the end of a long run, it was harder to run. Why? Because those muscles are now very tight. And it doesn't matter what you do without totally warming up. You can't stretch those muscles back out like that.
Right.
Especially when I had a lot of runs where it was under 20 degrees when I was done. And it just, it was rough. And it's funny because I'm thinking of it and I'm rubbing the tops of my legs because I'm like, oh my gosh, I remember what that feels like. Will I do it again? Yeah, absolutely. Will it be cold? Yeah, probably. But our brain tends to forget after we cross that finish line what it was like to start.
Yeah, those 7 months just, like, completely flit out your brain, and you're like, "What training? I just remember the finish line and how I felt."
Right. And I have to thank one of the gals in our group. I was very focused on time. And I know we're going to talk about that a little bit too, but I was very focused on time. And she reminded me, she said, but what do you want to feel like when you cross that finish line, regardless of what your time is? And I so appreciate Trish doing that to me because I felt like it made me think or focus on something besides pure time. And I know, Allie, your podcast, your messaging, everything, pace isn't everything. And I get it. But I do know some of us, we like that pace. We like to go fast. We like, and when I say fast, fast is irrelevant because it varies from person to person. But we like that ability to just, I like to chase a number, I think. I think that's part of what it is. It's not, I mean, even if you go back to and listen to the Disneyland episode that I did, we talked about the fact that I got an A- because I didn't quite hit the goal I had wanted. And I'm totally fine with it. And I still laugh because it was an A-, but I like to chase a goal. And I think that's part of what ended up making my races fun in the end. I love to run at Disney. I am not the person who's going to dress up like all the characters all the time. I'm not the person who's going to feel like they have to stop at all the stops, but I still appreciate them there. That doesn't mean I won't stop at the end and get pictures, things like that, but I'm not as likely to stop in a race and do it. And that's a choice. And I having listened to your messaging so much, and I love your messaging, and you talk about people being able to stop for characters. And if that's what you want, great. But you know what? I don't always have to, and I'm okay with it. Now, if Minnie Mouse would have been a line in which I could have stopped and there would have been a photographer there, in California, in any of the races, I would have stopped, regardless of my goal. But she wasn't. They never had a photographer at her stop. And so I didn't because I was by myself. And I was like, nope, it's okay. Just keep going. And now Springtime Surprise, Minnie Mouse is out. I will stop because she's my girl.
And also, we were just talking Springtime Surprise for you. You don't have a pace goal for that one because you have another race later. So Springtime Surprise, right before we started recording this, we were talking about, okay, well, should you taper for Springtime Surprise or should Springtime Surprise just be another training run? Or should you walk the 10-miler because you're doing the 3-course challenge? So you'll probably walk the 5K. Who knows what we're doing on the 10K? And then 10-miler, maybe you'll decide to walk it because
or at least walk a majority of it.
Yeah.
And I know I can walk it because I did last year, which is the other thing. So I started with Allie in March. I had been extremely sick prior to starting with her. I was still in recovery at that point and had not run. And so with that being said, I walked Springtime Surprise, 10-miler. I pulled myself from the 10K to make sure I could walk it to get done in time because I knew it was going to be a push. And was successful. And that was all about getting my coast-to-coast medal. So my coast-to-coast medal in September was huge to me. It was this year too, but that's just because it was again in pure joy. I think I still run because I like to go to Disney.
And I think I'm the same. You know, it's interesting. The first time I went to Disney World was 2018. Ever to Disney World was 2018. look at me now. I'm like, well, when's the next race? I'm using that to go to Disney World now. Even if I'm not in the race, Royal and I have discussed that I should probably be at race weekend, even if I'm not racing. Because, man, it's so fun just watching everybody kill their goals and me be in the same time zone as they're doing it.
Yes. So that if
No,
somebody needs talked off a ledge, it's possible.
yeah,
And
and
it's
it's
not middle of your night.
not me randomly waking up at 1 in the morning, which did happen over Princess Weekend. I randomly woke up at 1 in the morning. I don't know. My ears must have been burning because a Stronger Faster Finisher member must have been thinking, I need help. I woke up, just happened to look at my phone. She had messaged me, and I was like, oh, great timing. I'm awake. But it is much easier for me to do that when I'm at the start line and being able to text back and forth in the same time zone. I'm already awake.
Yeah.
So that may be a future for me.
And I have to say, I probably will say this multiple times, but our Faster, Stronger Finisher members, messed that all up, but that's okay.
That's okay.
Stronger, Faster Finisher, there we go. That has been fun to see that community come together. Kathy being at my finish line, it was huge. Kathy and her daughter coming to the finish line. I didn't get to actually see them because they chose to go to the park before I got there because I stopped and got pictures, which is, again, it's all good. But I appreciate people who want to cheer each other on, and they didn't even have to be there because they weren't running that morning. And I think it says a lot for the type of people that you attract. Like attracts like in a lot of ways. And so I think that was, it was just, it brought me joy. As it's brought me joy to sit and watch people finish. I've never done that until marathon weekend. And it was just fun. And it was fun to know, oh my gosh, there they go, whether it was my kids or the Stronger Faster Finisher members. And it, it was just fun. So, and I laugh because my kids get messages from time to time. You were in a video in somebody else's thing.
Yeah, there's a definite video of your son and his wife where they are dressed as Flynn Rider and Rapunzel, I do believe.
Yep.
In one of my videos, or probably multiple videos. I'm sure it has come around, and they are most definitely there because I definitely did film them.
Yes. So they laugh. My daughter-in-law's like, yep, I heard from so-and-so that like, yeah. But yeah, so I mean, I just think that the community, I mean, how many people have said this across all the platforms? The Run Disney community is different than any other community. And I think that's part of the reason that we are willing to spend the money we spend. We are willing to get up at the time of that day we get up. And Dopey is not for the faint of heart.
Holy cow, it is not. 4 days, 5K, 10K, half marathon, full marathon. It's the only place where somebody says, I'm just doing the marathon. And you're like, just 26.2? But it's in comparison with somebody doing 48.6. So that's a great way to bring up, let's talk about your Dopey.
So this was my second Dopey. My first Dopey was successful with hiccups. I mean, as any race is. But in my training, I realized, I'm going faster than I was when I did Dopey before, which is really interesting because I trained 4-minute run, 1-minute walk. Last time. This time I did 30-30. The 5K, I purely walked. My husband told me that if I walk that fast for the 10K, he does the 5K and the 10K with me. If I walked the 10K as fast as I walked the 5K, he was going to be left behind because he wasn't going to keep up because I walked the 5K too fast for him, which I laugh because that's never been the case. Actually, I could run. In the past, if I were to run, he could walk at my run pace. So the fact that I was out walking him, he would have to run to catch up. So that was kind of fun in itself. And my goal was to just try to better the times I had in 22. And the 5K I did by, I think, 8 minutes, something like that. Didn't mean to beat it by that much, but that's what happened.
You had a lot of accidents over Dopey
kinda did. I
weekend.
kinda did. Happy accidents, as
Happy
it were.
accidents, yes.
So then the 10K, he was like, "You gotta slow it down if I'm gonna stay with you." And I knew I needed to stay with him because I knew I needed to slow myself down. It wasn't about him. It was about keeping me at bay, as it were, because I knew I was trained well enough to go faster. So I went into the 10K wanting to beat my time, and I beat it by a half hour from
30
22
minutes from
without trying.
2022.
And I know for a fact I walked the 10K in 22 and I walked the 10K in 24 and 26. So they were, I mean, if you were to compare them, they were both walk.
Walk to walk.
I may have stopped for character stop the first year, but I don't even think I did because I still, I mean, as everybody has learned, you can get swept in any race. Don't ever think you can't get swept in a 5K because you can. And that is one of those misnomers that people had for a long time. And I know that people got swept the last couple of races, or they'll shorten the course on you.
Right. It's not necessarily a sweep. It's usually a diversion, and we are cutting the course.
Or as we found in Disneyland, because they've got to get the parks cleared out fast enough, they just cut off all the lines and don't even think about getting a character stop because, and it wasn't that we were that slow in Disneyland. It just, that's what it is.
The way the cookie crumbled.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the half marathon, I knew I had come off of Disneyland, having had a good half marathon. I knew I was well fueled. I had done my carbo load had started. I was feeling good. I didn't expect to go as fast as I had gone in Disneyland because that wasn't what was most important. So I didn't.
Because for you, what was most important this time around?
It was about beating the time from the year before. The half marathon I beat by 20 minutes without overly trying. I mean, I was running more, but I wasn't trying to be faster. But with that being said, I was faster than I was in California. So now I was like 2 minutes faster than I had been in September without trying.
2 minutes faster or 20 minutes faster?
2 minutes faster. I was 20 minutes faster than I had been in 22.
Okay, yes.
But 2 minutes faster than I had been in September.
And I'm gonna pause you right there for a second. Normally I don't interrupt people, but I want a point to be made in case anybody hasn't listened to your other episode. The half marathon you did in September, you got a 3:15, which was a 45-minute improvement from 2024's half marathon. And now we've gone from September 2025 to January of 2026, having done a 5K that was fast, a 10K that was fast, to now 2 minutes faster on the half marathon.
Yeah. And knowing I have a marathon in front of me. And I would never recommend this to somebody, but I did go out wanting to PR my marathon. And the reason was, when I did my 20-mile run, when I was done, I looked at my time. I knew how long it had taken me to do my 20 miles, in which I had walked 7, purely walked. I mean, if there was a run, it was like 30 seconds, maybe 2 minutes in a mile. That was it. It was almost pure run once I hit 13 miles, or pure walk once I hit 13 miles. But I looked at my time and went, even at this pace, another 6 miles, I could get my fastest marathon pace ever.
And how many marathons had you done before?
3. And my fastest was my first one in 2018 when I only did the marathon at Disney World.
She just used air quotes for anybody who's listening. Only the marathon.
Because that was, I was not a person who thought I could do the whole thing all at once like that. And If somebody were to outright ask me, I would always tell somebody to do the marathon first, which I laugh because my son, who also did Dopey with me this year, he did his first marathon in Dopey. It is doable, but it's not easy. And part of it's the training, but part of it is it is physically hard because let's face it, that fourth morning, a 4:30 in the morning start, it's just hard. There's no other way to put it. It's just you're tired at that point because we've already done 22 something in mileage. We've not even done half the mileage. But in the back of my mind, as I'm an ABC goal. My A goal was to PR. My B goal was to beat the time I had done in 22, which I will say was a 7:03, and my C goal was to finish in front of the balloon ladies. That was it. That was my ABC goal. I got to about first off, anybody who's run down down Main Street in Magic Kingdom knows what joy that is. And I think part of the reason I like to run Disney is sometimes running through those castles, running through the different places and things like that. I still laugh at one of Allie's members who her whole goal was to get to Allie in Animal Kingdom, which was between mile 17 and 18. I think that's huge because it's part of the fun. The miles on the road are not always the fun part, but I digress. So I had a little cheat sheet that I had stuck on my vest so that I could keep track of my paces because I thought that, if I'm going to do this, I need to know what pace I need to go. And I can't even remember what the number was, to be honest, but I knew what I needed to do. Well, I had started in long sleeves and I knew I was going to take those long sleeves off. I never thought about it. Well, where I had it, when I took off my vest to take off my long sleeves, I lost my pace chart. So then I was like, okay, so I got to about mile 11, I think just before 12. And I messaged my husband and I said, hey, I need you to tell me what my watch should say at mile 12. Because then I could know if I was very close. And then we kind of went back and forth. And so he started doing it for me he did it for me every 2 miles until I got to mile 21 or 22, because it would have been an even number. And then at 22, then he gave it to me every mile. And part of the reason I did that was because I know in my past history, at least, I just get slower and slower and slower, which is not uncommon, especially in a marathon. So he told me what my watch should say at 12. And I was like, I'm quite a ways ahead of that. All right, okay. That's good because I know that I'll lose in the end. And I had him as even paces. So he wasn't going to give me my pace again until 14. I got to the halfway mark in which there is a pace clock that I could see. And I looked at it and I went, oh my, I just did a half marathon in the middle of a marathon faster than I did the day before. I was floored. I think I was so floored, I messaged Allie in the middle of the race and said, oh my gosh, you're not, because I didn't know where it was coming from. I think I believed I could do it, but I don't think I had full buy-in yet. And at that point where we were at, it was kind of cool because I could see some of the fast runners up like perpendicular to me because of where they were at. And it was just kind of fun to be able to see. I always say sometimes it's neat to see other people in other places. And I was like, oh, wow, there goes the fast runners. I mean, but, and that was anybody who's did marathon this year, you might remember going through the Magic Kingdom parking lot. And that's where that mark was. And having done before and having looked at the map enough, I knew that the next 6 miles were going to be on the rougher side because it's a lot of road and it's not real exciting road. But I'm like, nope, I've got this. I had to stay out of my own way because in 22, I'd gotten in my way. And when I say that, what happened was it was like my brain went, you can't do this. You don't know how, you're not trained for it. And I had to eventually, while I was running, I had to talk myself back into being able to keep going. And this time I was like, no, you're not going there. You've got this. You've done the training. You've done the miles. Everything about it, I knew my body was capable. It was hot. Be the first one to admit it was humid more than hot in my mind. And I had to not think about that. I had to let that not play a part in my final results. So I kept going. I got to Animal Kingdom, in which I was so looking forward to seeing Allie, and somehow or another completely missed her.
We
Completely.
missed each other. I didn't see you either.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
And I'm coming out of Magic Kingdom, and I'm like, again, I've looked at the map enough, and I'm like, ooh, if I need a bathroom, I better do it now if I want to use a flushie. And so I, took my second bathroom stop of the race because it's a long time. And it wasn't necessarily a short one, but you got to do what you got to do. And I took off running again. And it's just, I know now it's hot, right? We're in the sun now. And the one thing I did was I tried to stay on the side where there was the most shade. I'm fortunate enough that I do start up in the higher corrals because of Club Run Disney. So I still had shade, where some of the people, by time they got there was no shade because the sun was straight up. And I know we talked about that in our group, and they were like, there was no shade. And I'm like, oh, there was just enough. I was able to get by. So I tried to stay in the shade. All of a sudden now I'm having cramping in my leg. And I'm like, darn it. And I messaged Allie. And Allie, we talked back and forth a little bit and just, okay, here's some things to try and stuff. But I was like, I'm not letting this stop me. I've been trained. I can do this. So I kept going, and I got into Hollywood Studio, and I knew an acquaintance of mine, but a friend of my daughter's, I knew she was going to be outside of Hollywood, coming towards Boardwalk. And I knew she had snacks for people. And I remember seeing Tiffany, and I said, Tiffany, do you have anything with salt? And she looked at me. I don't know if at that moment she knew who I was. She did later, because when she talked to my daughter-in-law, she goes, that wouldn't have been your mom and mother-in-law, would it? And she goes, yeah, it was. But she's like, I have a pickle juice shot. I've never taken one at this point. But I'm like, I knew I needed the salt. And I'm like, if you don't mind, I'll take it. And she's like, yeah, absolutely. That's what they're here for. And she gave it to me. I downed it and kept going. Made a huge difference, because by the time I got to the finish line, although my calf hurt, it wasn't cramped anymore. And so I do know it was salt. I did not somewhere get enough salt. And that'll be the rectified before, as I train for the next marathon, I will make sure that doesn't happen again, or I've got what I need with me. I actually thought I had salt tabs with me, and I couldn't find them. We did later find them. They were in my backpack. You can't always find them. So again, my husband's still talking to me every mile. And again, that Blizzard Beach parking lot, as everybody knows, is much like the Magic Kingdom parking lot. It's just not fun. And now it's full sun. But I'm still on pace to be able to finish in my A goal, which smash my B goal. And my A goal was like 40 minutes less than my B goal. So I'm like, okay, I keep going. And the encouragement of people along the way. At this point, I'm still running. My first Dopey, I wasn't still running in mile 24, 25, 26. I was not still running. I was still running and sprinted the finish line. And I laughed because I did hit my A goal by 5 minutes, I think it ended up being. And the joke became, because Allie was trying to get to the finish line before I got there from Animal Kingdom, and she missed me. Had I hit the goal I set, she would have got to see me cross. But because I decided to overachieve, she missed me.
I missed you by like 30 seconds.
But that's okay. That wasn't what was most important. Yes, I was thrilled to know she was there, and I was thrilled to know she tried to get there. But I have to say, hitting that goal I would have never guessed that I could do that, which makes me want to do a standalone marathon for a goal just to see what I can do. We mentioned that I'm doing a standalone half in May for that same reason, because Disney, what it is about it, but it pulls us into doing multiples, and as anybody who's done Disney marathons or races, there are pinch points. There are points where it is just outright crowded, and that makes it harder too. Um, and that it's part of the fun also for me. But so, yeah. So long story short, I hit my A goal.
You
And
killed your A goal.
I killed my A goal. Yeah, because 5 minutes, to me, that is huge. I was 5 minutes faster than I had been, or almost 5 minutes faster than I had been in 2018, and more than 40 minutes faster than I had been in 2022. So big difference. And I honestly didn't know that I would ever do a marathon under 6.5 hours again when I did it the first time, because I'm getting older. It's harder. And I did. I got under 6.5 hours by quite a bit. So
Do you want to share the actual time, or do you want to leave that to keep on your own?
I did a 6:19, 6:19:03, 6:19:14. That's what it was. 14. And my previous had been a 6:24:22, had been my fastest. So yeah, a lot of things. My husband, where I could look at my watch and go, all right, I'm on track. Or, ooh, I'm starting to lose a little bit. Because I'll be honest, when I was starting to lose a little bit, I kept pushing because I knew if it did get hard at the very end, if I did all of a sudden have a problem, I would be okay. Because it did start to become important to me. And the closer I got, the more important it got to me.
That's incredible. I mean, yes, we laugh about it now that I missed you at the finish line, but for a great reason, right? Like, I didn't miss you at the finish line because you got hurt and couldn't keep going. It was you killed it and you sprinted the finish line after running for 4 days.
Yeah. And I'm going to be honest, I'm getting to the point that I kind of practice in my last interval of a speed workout, my sprinting. Why? Because I want to be able to sprint the finish line.
Great.
Because it's kind of fun.
It's so fun to be able to be like, look how strong I feel crossing this finish line or getting to, the finisher's chute, like that after that curve at Disney World. And you're like, oh yeah, I could sprint that. I've done that.
Yeah. And it was funny because I remember in the half marathon, once I saw you in the stands, then I took off sprinting because I knew you were there. And I think for the marathon, I knew my husband was in the stands. And once I saw him, I took off because I wasn't expecting you to make it because I knew where you had been. And I knew that getting back to Epcot parking lot isn't always easy from there. So I didn't necessarily expect you there. Yeah. So it was a lot of fun. And it makes it easier to forget some of those miles on the road that were so hard. I know Allie knows this. I would say, I'm very good. You tell me what to do. I'm going to probably go out and do it. Almost always as prescribed. Maybe not 100%, but I would say probably 95% of the time. And it's funny because I was thinking about it, knowing I was going to be on the podcast. And I think I have one long run that I cut short. And it was because I was so cold, I couldn't do anything. And I was trying to text my husband. And then anybody who's got an Apple, you blow your screen up too much. It got to that point that it was so big, I couldn't get to the full keyboard. I couldn't get to the voice memo. He was like beginning to wonder, wait a minute, do I need to call an ambulance? What's going on? And fortunately, he tracked me. He drove right to me. And I got in the car and I'm like, I can't do anything because I was just so cold. And I think I had, the mileage isn't exact, but I was like in that 15 range or 16 range. And I knew I had an 18 and a 20 left. And I want to say I maybe cut it by a mile. It wasn't like a huge cut, but it was enough that it was just like, I'm cold, I'm done. And my intent was to go home and do it on the treadmill to do the last finishing miles. And I was like, no, I'm done. And again, I think I was mentally tired. But I think because I got mentally tired on my runs and my training runs, I was more prepared for the races because I've already been through mentally tired.
That's a great point. Yes, you're physically going through the work to train for the marathon, and mentally going through the work to train for that marathon because it's a huge mental game to be out there for 6 hours and 19 minutes or 6.5 hours or 7 hours, or I've even had clients 8 hours.
Yeah, especially in the training runs when you're all by yourself. There's no I'm sorry, there's no entertainment on my roads. I mean, the only thing I had was Christmas decorations. Um, and I know when I was doing my 20-miler, my husband came and did the last 3 miles with me. And at that point, like I said, I wasn't running to speak of. And we would get to a little library, the book libraries that are out on in people's yards. And he joked that those were the photographers, and we had to run because we've always run by the photographers. And so we joked that those were the photographers, so I had to run by them. And at least it broke it up and gave it some entertainment. So then it was funny because when we did the 5K and the 10K together, he was like, oh, there's a library when it was a photographer. But he was like, library's easier to say than photographer.
Yeah. Photographer's a mouthful.
So, yeah. So that was, it was a fun weekend. It was neat to get to know people out of our group, to cheer people on, to be there when it wasn't necessarily easy for them in the end, because not everybody had their perfect weekend. And that's hard too, because I did have my perfect weekend. But I so appreciate those who had to work in the other way and had to get themselves out of their own mental hardships, because it is hard. I've been fortunate. I've not had a did not finish, but I know what it's like not to start. And it's just, it's not easy. It's not a mental easy. And so I give them a lot of credit because I know for a fact they did their training. It's not like they didn't do their training either.
Yeah. And marathon weekend this year, like marathon specifically, we can train as well as we can train, right? Like we can check all of the boxes. We can do all of the things. We can fuel right. We can get all of the miles in. We can do slow on our long run. We can go fast on our speed workouts. And then stuff happens race weekend. Illness, just upset stomach, not being able to take in food, humidity, flare-ups of asthma, temperature, course diversions, change-ups, bathroom stops at inopportune moments, right? Having to make the decision of, am I going to keep running or am I going to decide to stop at the bathroom right now? Do I have a big enough buffer? And having to make these decisions or having these other uncontrollables happen, unfortunately, sometimes that does happen even when you get an A+ in training.
Yeah. And I know, like I said, I feel like some of my friends ran into that this time, and it's rough. And it in my mind, it broke my heart too, only because I care about them and I care, I know how important some of this is to these people, and how hard the training is. And so I've always been a person who has said, my heart breaks for the person who's done the training and for whatever reason can't get across that finish line. I've been in corrals in which I've heard people say, oh, I don't even expect to finish. I didn't do the training. That's a whole different game. I don't feel bad for you. And those are the people I wish wouldn't get the medals. Because let's face it, we're getting the medal for the training, not for the finish line.
Yes, the finish line is the victory lap, right? Like you just did 7 months of training. You deserve that medal.
Yeah. I'm glad that we did the training the way we did. I'm glad we had the deload weeks, because obviously I went through a spell where I needed my deload week. I'm glad I did the speed workouts. I'm glad I did the strength training. Was I 100% on my strength training? No. If I were to rate myself, I would say I was probably 95% on my run and probably 80% on my strength training, maybe even 75. Because if I'm going to give something up, that's what I will typically give up. And it's funny because as I've started the next cycle of training, I'm like, I've already missed some of my strength training because I've not I just sometimes don't want to go back out in the cold and I don't strength train at home. And I kind of made a pact to myself this week. I'm like, okay, if you're not going to go back out in the cold, you at least have to do your core workout at home because I can do that. So
That's a good compromise.
at least it's something, but I want to actually stick with the weights. But so we get done with this, come home. I had a month? Not even?
Not even. K- Before I, excuse me, before we
Yes.
move on to this, I have a question. Well, I have two questions. And maybe the second one might be able to wait until after Disneyland. You mentioned that your 2022 race, you had hit, miles 24, 25, 26, you weren't running anymore. Maybe you said it was mile 22 where you hit a thought of, what are you doing? You can't do this. And this year, you didn't hit that. Why do you think the difference?
It wasn't that I didn't hit it, because
Okay.
I did hit it. I did hit it at a point between Animal Kingdom and Magic Kingdom, in which my brain went, you could slow down and you could still finish. You don't have to push this hard. All the negative that our brain wants to feed us. And I truly believe, it's not, yeah, it just happens. What was the difference? I think was the fact that, first off, I do like goals and I do like to achieve goals. I also felt like I could trust my training. I felt like my training was going to get me what I was doing, what my goal was, where I was going. I really did believe in my training, probably more so than ever before. And it's not like I've not had good training. I think I know I said it on the last call. I've had a running coach for years. This was different and it hit me different. And if Dr. Allie isn't your coach, that's okay. She doesn't have room for all of you anyways. But and it's not like Allie does a lot of mental. I think it's just that I trusted my training more than I've ever probably trusted my training. And I wanted to prove to myself and to Allie and to my husband, and to be honest, my young kids. And when I say young, they're almost 30, that I'm as strong as I think I am. Do the work. I've done the work. What was so different? Because I did the work before too. What was so different? I don't think I went in on as fatigued of legs. Even though I had tapered, I'd never done a 3-week taper. Until Disneyland. And then we definitely did a 3-week taper for Dopey, which, yeah, my body needed it. I don't think I've never been as meticulous about the carb loading. And I think that made a difference because, I have more carbs. Well, what is more carbs? What does that look like? I knew what I was supposed to be getting in 22. I had followed running dietitians that I knew had given me the right data. And I know Allie has a podcast that she had with one, and it was the same information. Pretty much. We're talking apples to oranges, but again, the people, but it was the same number data. That's what I was saying. But this time I tracked it. I looked at it. I looked at it ahead of time. It makes a difference. It makes a difference going in. I had learned to fuel, I would say probably the first time I did Dopey, but I even think there I probably fueled better this time. Was I perfect? No, I did not get enough fuel in the marathon. First off, we know that because once I got salt, I was better. But also in the fact that I had too much fuel left when I was done. And I think part of that was I just got so wrapped up into what I was doing, I forgot to fuel, which is why we have to practice all the time. And I know it's funny because this will be my first long enough run. It's not even long this week. And I'm like, oh, I have to fuel and think about it again, which I'm glad because the more I practice, the better I'll be at it.
Yeah. And it's interesting, in this conversation, you just said that you weren't as good at your strength workouts, at getting them. You were 80%, yet you felt stronger
Yes.
going into your race?
I think there was a lot of things. First off, you never pushed me to have to run longer. Time, so my intervals, you were like, stick with 30-30. I tried to up it at one point, and you were like, what are you doing? And I went back to 30-30, and because I was able to be consistent. And I think that's part of what happened when I was doing 4-minute, 1 minutes. The strength, although I wasn't perfect, I know for a fact my body was stronger. The last running coach I had, the coach I had when I did 22, she had programmed some strength, but I think part of it was the strength. It was a lot of body work or body strength. And it was like, hold a plank for this amount of time or do a side plank. I couldn't do it. So what did I do? Didn't do it at all. Where your strength program met me where I was at. And you gave us choices on what to do based on what we could do. And I know, I mentioned this, I know I was doing lunges at one point in the strength program. And then all of a sudden my knees were bugging me. And we're like, pull the lunges out. Let's do away with the lunges. That's okay. I don't like doing lunges anyways. So great. Now, Allie always says, if there's something you don't like to do, don't do it. I don't like to do planks, but I do them. Why? Because I know they're good for me. And it's actually an easy place for me to see if I'm improving. Now, the one thing I did think this week is I need to do it at home where I have a mirror, because where I'm doing it at our gym, I don't have a mirror. And I want to make sure my back's down low enough that my butt's not up in the air like it. I don't think it is, but I can't tell by myself.
Yeah, that visual feedback is very helpful. Yeah. So one more question, and then we can go to Disneyland. So, I thought of these two questions in the middle. What do you mentioned not running longer, right? Like I talk about max out at 20 miles, make it take as long as it's going to take you on race day. And I recommend the slower the better on the long runs. Tell me your thoughts on maybe the first time you heard me say that and how it worked or didn't work for you through training, and how it translated or didn't translate to a fast race day.
I would say that was something I probably wasn't real good at following, because I knew it was going to take me 6.5 hours to do the marathon. When I first started, I actually figured it was going to take me closer to 7, which meant my 20-mile run should have taken me 7 hours. And it took me, as I recall, just about 5. Yeah. But for me, that was where I was at. And that was a slow pace. I said I walked the last 7 miles. I mean, other than the library sprints, and when I say sprints, it was just getting past them, and that was it. It wasn't even like, it probably wasn't 10 seconds most of the time. But I think for me, that was where I was at, and that was okay. And you never told me to slow it down. Had you told me to slow it down more, I might have fought you on it a little bit. But I think because I came into it knowing that I could do a marathon, because I'd already done 3, maybe that's why you didn't slow me down. I don't know, but
I may have just not caught it. That's very possible.
Yeah. But I think at the same time, like I said, I knew where I was at and I knew what I could do. And even that felt slow.
And so the pace still felt slow for you. You weren't actively trying to go faster and faster and faster.
No, definitely. The only place I was trying to go faster and faster was in the speed workouts. And it was probably about October, and you made a comment, something to the effect that if you're not cussing at me in the middle of your speed workout, you're not going fast enough. And I went, I'm not cussing at her. I'm not going fast enough. Guess what? I push harder now in my speed workouts. It's made a difference. Not that I wasn't getting faster, because I was still pushing. I just wasn't pushing maybe quite as much as I could. And I laugh. I did hill repeats this week. And trust me, there were several words said. And I laugh because it was 35 degrees and I'm peeling layers off because I'm dying of heat because I'm sweating. It's hot when you're running like that. And then I'd come down 2 minutes and I'm like, okay, now I'm cold. I got to get running again.
Which is exactly what should happen on those hill workouts. You sprint up the hill as much as you can, and then you use that 2 minutes as recovery. And, we were just talking with your long run. I didn't catch the pace. And honestly, I do look at everybody's training.
I know you do.
I probably didn't catch the actual pace because I ask, well, how did it feel? Or that I'm going to ask. So you already write it in your note about felt easy, heart rate was this, which is, a good heart rate for me and yada, yada, yada. That's what I'm looking for. Did it feel easy? Or are you trying to go faster and faster and faster each time you do a long run and get a new PR? And you weren't. You were telling me this felt so easy. I feel like I could go more. I do know I've caught a few of those in the notes. Like, oh, I could have done more today.
Yeah. And it was interesting because after being in Disneyland in September, and I did the pace I did, there was a mental piece there also that happened for me that went, oh, I can go faster than I think I can. So I came home and what did I do? All of my training got easier at a faster pace. And I think that was mental for me. And it's interesting because guess what? It happened again. And so it's going to be interesting in this training cycle to see what I can do because my brain has already gone, oh, you can do a 13:40 and a half. What can you do now?
Yeah. Can you do 13? Can you do 12:40? What can you do?
Right. So it to me, that's kind of like almost mind-blowing because I think I truly do not at the end of my pace workouts or not speed workouts. I'm not going to tell you that it was easy because then I know it was definitely, I didn't do it easy enough or did it hard enough. But I do, and I almost, before I look at my watch for my pace, I am somebody who I like my data, so I will look at my watch and everything else. But before I look at my watch for my pace, I decide how that run felt. And my reason is because it could have felt easy and been snail's pace. It could have felt easy and been fast. I don't always know. I mean, a lot of times I know about where I'm at, but I want to decide before I know how it felt because I think that's a truer feeling than looking at your pace and going, oh yeah, that was a crappy run because I did a 15-minute mile or a 16-minute mile or a 17-minute mile because we all have those.
Yeah, it's almost like looking at your watch. I don't know if this is the right phrase, but this is the phrase that came to mind where it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. You look at your watch, so you see your pace, and you use your pace to determine whether you thought that was a good run, a bad run, an easy run, a hard run, become disappointed or elated. It's usually disappointed when you have a subconscious thought already, but you look at your watch too early and now you're like, oh, I thought that was a really good run. It felt easy. Thought I would have gone faster on that. And so I like that where you don't look at your watch right away. You look at it eventually, but you make that decision before pace ever comes into play.
And it's been really easy to do in the winter because my watch is typically pretty much covered just because of clothing and I can stop it. And like I said, I almost always meet my husband and my youngest son about a quarter of a mile from home. And they'll go, oh, how was your run? Well, it felt pretty good today. Or it was tough. By the end, I was huffing and puffing a little bit, which I've also said that to you. I may have pushed too hard at the end or I pushed too much at the beginning because I'm evaluating as I go too. And, I even said this, we were talking about long runs and stuff in our call this week. And I said, I want to be able to sing in my easy run. And I have to do it out loud or have a conversation. And so it's not uncommon for you to go by me and I might be having a conversation with myself because I'm trying to slow myself down or make sure I'm going slow enough.
You got to do what you got to do. You had to do that on race day.
I did, especially in the half marathon, because I was like, I've got to slow myself down because I didn't want to gas out for marathon. Because to me, marathon was the most important piece. And so I knew I had to go slower in my half marathon.
Yeah.
And I did. I did. I can remember like singing along to whatever was playing in my ear. Allie's playlist plays well in my ear. And actually that was, that was Paige's playlist for that because Paige did great playlist.
Ooh.
So, yeah, her marathon playlist was wonderful because I don't know how she did it, but she had it timed so that when I went through the Star Wars stuff, it was playing Star Wars music.
How cool.
Yeah, I don't know what she did, but Paige could make my playlist anytime. I mean, literally, when we went through Hollywood Studios, it was playing music from Hollywood Studios. Again, I don't know how she did it.
I'll have to find it because she made that on Spotify, right?
She did.
So I listen to Apple Music, so I'll have to figure out a way to maybe I'll ask her for the list, like to take a screenshot of the list of the music. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really cool. So it was fun.
That is cool. All right. So we talked marathon weekend. I interrupted you when you were saying now we have a month leading up to Disneyland.
Yeah. And I knew you were going to force me to not run, but I have a race in 4 weeks. That's where my brain wanted to go, right? I mean, as anybody's would. And again, trust the process. It didn't hurt that I got a cold. It was a race weekend. Of course, I come home with a cold or got a cold and I got home. I don't even remember. But either way, you finally said I could do a easy 45-minute run. I think maybe 10 days before the race was the first time. And then I had a slight panic attack, and it was more about my own personal travel and things like that. And you were like, if you want, you can run this, because I think you were worried. I was worried about the race. So in the middle of a paced walk, I did a mile run just to maybe cobweb a little bit out. That was the only running I did leading into Disneyland, in which I was doing the 5K, the 10K, and the half. Now, I've just had 2 good halves. I had the one in September. Actually, I had 3, really. I had the one marathon weekend, and then the one at the start of the marathon, in which I did a 3:01 marathon or half marathon in the middle of a marathon. So now I went under that 3-hour mark, which at that point I had not done since 2018. 2018? Yeah. No, 2017 was the last time I had done under a 3-hour marathon or half marathon, excuse me. That's what I wanted. I just wanted under, which Allie knew. And again, I like round numbers. Allie had it figured out. I can't remember what it was. I may have been a 13:41 or 43 or something like that. And I went a 13:40 because I could do the math easier in my brain, which put me like 3 minutes under, I think, or 2 minutes under, something like that. I can't remember exactly. It got hard, as we all know. Anybody who's trained anything, there's always a point where it gets hard, and it did get hard. Disneyland, although it doesn't have many hills, there is a underpass at I think it was between mile 10 and 11, but it's an out and back. So you do it twice. And at that point, that's when I really wanted to give up. And I didn't, but I knew it was starting to get close to hitting whether I was going to hit that goal or not. Again, the A goal was just to be under 3 hours, period. Just get me under that. I hate to say it. We all have those numbers. And what is it for everybody? You know, I laugh because the person who just won Princess, the female who won Princess, does a half in less time than it takes me to run half of it.
Right.
But that's okay. And we know that's not her fastest. My husband did not travel with me, which is unusual. I love my husband to death. I did bring my kid with me, but not quite the same. Allie was there, which for me was definitely a bonus. But Allie's not in my ear. My husband was in my ear. And when I say that, after the marathon, we kind of learned that actually did me good to have him cheering me on. It also helped. Allie did cheer me on because we had just started using, I think we just started using Voxer. And so you sent me a message.
Yep.
You sent me a message. I got a text message from my friend Trish in the middle of the race. So everybody's cheering me on. They know what I want. They know what I can do. And anybody who's got a kid that sits on the spectrum at all, you understand that they don't always show all their emotions. And that's the case with my son who was traveling with me, who I love great dearly. But even he made it a point to, you got this, Mom. You can do this, Mom. And it means a lot to have somebody. And I know a lot of the people in our group have started using the rally.com, I think it is,
Yep.
for getting those messages. And I think it's such a neat idea. I've not used it. I may in May just to have fun with it. But I knew I was getting close. I'm watching my watch. I can't give up. Why can't I give up? I could. I mean, I could, but no. I had my own personal drive besides all the the hand on your back going, you got this, you got this, you got this. And I just had to push through when it did get hard because, like I said, Disneyland was probably harder than marathon weekend, only because I was probably somewhat still fatigued. I just did 46.8 miles. It is fatiguing, but I kept pushing through. I got to just before the mile 13 marker, in which my 26-year-old, 25-year-old, I guess, he's not quite 26, has his phone out where he has FaceTimed Dad. He did it. Dad didn't do it. He did it. So that Dad could see me and cheer me on. It was just the coolest thing. And and of course, anybody who's been to a race in which you've got people on the sideline, once they're cheering for someone, everybody around you is cheering for that person, unless they're cheering for their own person in that moment. But so they're all cheering Amanda on at this point, and it was extremely heartwarming. You go in Disneyland, you kind of do a U-turn into the finish chute, and I did that U-turn, and I'll be honest, I was looking for Allie. Because it meant, I would have never guessed how much it meant to me to have my coach cheering me on, to know my coach is there in the good times and in the bad times, in the easy and in the hard. And with her was Kathy and Kathy's daughter. And it was like, I see you, I'm going now. And again, I sprint to the finish. I looked up. I knew about when I started on the clock so I knew if it said, if I was under 3:05 on the clock that was on the side, I knew I had done it because I knew I had started. I think I had started just right around 5 minutes after the start. Sure enough. And I think my picture is funny because I've got my arms up and I'm crying and I almost look mad, but I'm not. I'm absolutely elated because I have yet hit another goal. What have I done differently? I've trained differently. That's the only thing I've done differently because I've always been a person to do my miles. I think even when I started with Allie, which would have been back in March last year, I probably said to you, you tell me what to do, I'll do it. And I think sometimes it's funny because I remember when I was training for Chicago back in 2018, when I said I ran outside year round, I was talking to somebody out of a run club and she goes, no, you don't. And I'm like, oh yeah, I do. You tell me to do the miles, I'm going to do the miles. Trust me, I didn't join that run club for a reason because they second guessed me. They really did. I'm like, no, tell me what to do and I'll do it. I may not always like it. It may not always be easy, but a lot of days it's rewarding in the end. I do get endorphins still off of a lot of my, especially now the speed workouts, definitely bring home endorphins. From an easy run, maybe not, but that varies day to day. So yeah. So now it's on to what's the next goal.
What is the next goal?
Well, 2:45, proof of time, probably using a 10K.
Great idea.
The problem is 10Ks are a little harder to find in our area. I can find a 5K and I can find a half. The 10Ks are just a little harder to find. Not that I won't. I will when it's right. But my fastest half marathon would have been in 2018. Do I think I can do that? Yeah, I do. I think I can kill it. I think if I kill it, it could potentially give me a proof of time in a half, which then gives me a proof of time in a marathon for Disney. Because Disney, you have to use a half or longer for a marathon.
10-mile or longer for
Or
a
10 mile
marathon.
or longer. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. So it I don't think I'm done. I said to Allie, we had a conversation earlier, and I said that I will turn 60 in 2 years, in which we're trying to get Allie to do a marathon. And so I'm kind of hoping that maybe I do a marathon at Disney just after I turn 60 with my coach.
How cool. That means you have to not get sick of me for the next 18 months.
Yeah, no, not happening, girlie. We've already had that conversation. Not happening. No, you're kind of stuck with me.
I'm stuck with you. Oh, shucks. Man.
But I want to be there for everybody. I want to cheer people on. I Allie knows this. I don't know that everybody in our group knows, but it is my intent to help one of our girls get across the finish line in the marathon in 27, because I know for a fact she can do it.
She can do it. I can't wait to see her do it.
And I want to be there with her the whole way. I really do. I'm excited. And I know I'm going to have to train slightly different to make sure that those miles work for me also, because I want to go her pace in her intervals, because it's doable. So it's fun, which is why I will always say, there's not many Disney races I wouldn't do.
Love this. And that kind of support, I never could have dreamed that this group would create that kind of support. To hear new friends who live all across the United States are cheering each other on from afar. You mentioned that Kathy was at the finish line for your half. Well, I got messages from other Stronger, Faster, Finisher members checking in to see how runners at Disneyland were doing. Hey, how is so-and-so doing? I'm watching on the tracking on Run Disney. Hey, send so-and-so a message from me. I want to make sure they know that we are rooting for them. Hey, how's it going? I got messages this weekend about Princess. Hey, how's so-and-so doing? Did anybody hit a new distance that they finished for the first time? I never in my wildest dreams could have imagined that that's what this group would come to. I love it. And it's so fun to see. I mean, week after week, we were talking before we started recording that this group gives me life. I look forward to our coaching calls every Tuesday. I feel so bad when I have to change it, because I know people are rearranging their schedule, and that means I may not get to see them that week.
Yeah.
And it's like 3 hours goes by in the blink of an eye, because that's how long our calls are most of the time. And of course, nobody has to stay for that whole time. I'll stay as long as somebody is still there asking questions. And it's just to hear that support, that you will adjust your miles, adjust your training, adjust your intervals to make sure that your running teammate completes her goal. I love that. Thank you for that.
Oh, I like I said, as we're coming up to signing up, it's like, yes, this is what I'm going to do. And it's funny because I was fortunate enough, I got to sit down and spend some time with her on Monday after the marathon. And when I walked into Magic Kingdom or Animal Kingdom that day, it was not my intent to do marathon weekend this coming January. And we're having conversation, and I was just overwhelmed enough. I was like, yep, nope, I'm doing it with you. And it was funny because when I said it, I think my husband kind of went, really? And I'm like, yep. And my husband's all in, trust me. But it is kind of funny because it's just such a different vibe. And I've been in running coaching groups before, cohorts, whatever you want to call them. This one is just so different. And I appreciate it. It does. I think it helps fuel me on those when it gets tough. And I want to hear everybody's questions because sometimes they bring me to questions. Ooh, wait, what about?
Well, you and I even had a conversation, I don't know, maybe in Disneyland, maybe it was before, and somebody had asked a question that has been asked time and time again. And you were like, but this time I finally heard the answer. I think it was the elastic band.
Yeah. It was the elastic band, but it was the first time
analogy.
I equated it directly with me and my body and the cold weather. And I went, duh. But yes, and I'd heard you say that at least 3 times.
And, every week on the call, without fail, somebody in the group apologizes. This has been asked before. I have to ask it. Great. Don't apologize. Please ask it 1,000 times. I will answer it 1,001 times.
Yeah.
Because you need to hear it today. You didn't need to hear it 2 weeks ago when it was asked by so-and-so. You need to hear it today. Or you need to hear how I phrase it differently today. Because I'm always saying things just a little bit differently because of how somebody responds or a follow-up question that gets asked. And I realize, I could clarify differently. I could clarify better by saying it this way.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because we had a whole conversation this week about understanding your pace at the start, that you don't go out too fast or too slow. And I can't remember exactly what Paige said, but whatever she said, I went, she's dead on. And how to know. And, and it does vary by the moment and stuff, but it was, you just don't know.
Yep. Yeah. We have a solid crew.
Yeah.
It's so fun seeing everybody each week.
And it's funny because I know, it was unfortunate that you had to cancel the one day. And it was just like, because I look forward to it and do I need to be on all the calls? No. Do I like to be on all the calls? Oh, yeah. It'd be hard. It's kind of funny because I know I'm going to have to fly out on a Tuesday in April. And I'm like, we either have to fly out earlier or later. So when we go to buy those plane tickets, we'll have that conversation.
Got to make sure I'm in the hotel room, ready to go for the coaching call. Bruce, set it up.
Yep.
Well, Amanda, thank you so much for joining me again. I know we could talk for hours. Is there anything that hasn't come up today already that you think would help somebody listening to get through the next training run or get through their next race?
I did say it, but I'm going to say it again because I think it would be the one thing I would say that probably drove me where I'm at right this moment in time in training. Trust the process. Trust your training. You've got to have trust in what you're doing. And the process of the training, the process of the carb loading, the process of the taper, because let's face it, we don't like the taper, the process of the recovery after the race. Because I do think I might not have been in the same spot at the end of January, beginning of February, had I not trust the recovery. So you got to have trust. And it starts with trusting who's putting that information out there, that information works the best for you and your body. I want to be running at 70 and 80. We already know I'm going to be running at 60, so.
Heck yeah.
And I would have never guessed that when I started running, ever. So,
well, that's great. I love that. Trust the process. And that starts with trusting whose information you are taking in. And that may be my information, and it may be somebody else's.
Yeah.
My training is not for everybody, and that's okay. Find the coach who is right for you, because you can make massive gains when you train for what's best for your body.
Please take what you've learned in this episode and use it to adjust your strategy for your Run Disney race training. It's not about doing more. It's about doing the right things in the right balance so you can finish strong, not broken. And if you want personalized guidance specific to your race, your injury history,
your running background, and your goals, that's exactly what we do inside Stronger, Faster, Finisher. You'll get step-by-step instructions and a proven system to help you train smarter from start to finish. Join the waitlist today to be the first to know when it opens next. That's all for now. Talk to you soon.